Uh-oh.
Alright, so we're back, and we're back on the build for the Vic Johnson Jose 100, which is the replica of my Jose for him. As always, brought to you by Three Monkeys, right? Home of the world's best solderless audio cable systems for RCA, car audio, home audio. Got it upside down. DC, as well as quarter inch. Alright, so check us out at threemonkeysolderless.com. Very cool. Alright, so let's continue where we left off. It's always good to kind of like do stuff that is in the way of other things that could be impeded by other things first. Does that make any sense? I don't think so. So anyway, what I want to do now is work in this general area here, right? So I figured we'd start with doing some more of the screen supply, right? The filter capacitors for the screen supply. And one of the things that I like to do, like if you like to make your wiring look really neat, where it's all bundled and, you know, all neatly tied together, and kind of the way, you know, that Marshall used to do it back in the day. It's always good to start with like one wire as being like your guide wire, and that everything else will sort of like go to that wire and follow it as it crosses the chassis to different places. So it becomes like the cornerstone, in a sense, of your neat wiring job, right? So we're going to start with the screen. So I've got some yellow that I've soldered onto the first preamp tube socket, or power amp tube socket, depending on the way you look at it, onto pin 6. And we're going to go over to the filters here. The filters also have to have like a 50K resistor on them, right? Something like a wire watt, or like a 1 watt or 2 watt, 3 watt, more watt, 4 watt, high watt kind of deal. So we've got these guys here, which are 47Ks, right? And these will work real good for our screen supply. Let me get my tools. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to start by just kind of straightening these legs back out again. And the way that you're going to do this, right, is you're going to put these things sort of like in series parallel. So what we want to do is we want to have a lead going through. These are the positive on the top, right? Positive, positive, and then negative. So we're going to put our resistor kind of like that. Okay? And this is where we're actually going to feed the screen supply in from. So I'm going to sort of make our cornerstone, right? About like that, I think is good. So I'm going to trim it here. I'm going to strip it. Right? Tin it. And I'm sorry about I have to use the light, because it's getting a little later in the day as well, and it's getting kind of dark, and I really can't see anything anymore in here. So I have to use my desk lamp to see, and I know it creates kind of a glare in this area, and it's not the most pleasant thing to look at, but if I can't see what I'm doing, I can't do nothing. So even with this, it's still hard to sort of see in the shadows here. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to insert this lead in with the resistor's lead, right? There we go. Okay. And then solder it home. All right. There we go. And then I'm going to turn this, what's extended through here a little bit, turn it at 90 degrees and insert it through the other side of this filter can, right? So we've got the two sides of the 50 microfarad running in parallel, and then they will be series connected to the next set, right? So what we're ending up with right here is 100, and then it'll go back down to 50. So we're going to then take the other side of this 50 ohm or 50K, 47K, whatever I said it was roughly, resistor, and feed it through to the ground connection, right? And we're going to get it in there nice so that it can't contact the chassis anywhere. That would be bad. That'd be like crossing the streams in Ghostbusters. It would not work out well for anybody. I'm going to take a little bit more of, I got a little spare piece of some cable here. So I'm going to use, right, waste not, want not. There we go. Get that in there. I don't know if there may be people here older or my age or what have you too, but like my parents, and I'm guessing a lot of your parents, if you're my age, grew up during the Depression, right? And they had these Depression era kind of like habits, which, you know, deja vu, right? Or who knows? And so like my mom and dad, they used to save like rubber bands from the newspaper. They'd save string. They'd save paper clips. I mean, anything that could be used for something was saved, right? Because during the Depression, you couldn't get things. And then during World War II, you couldn't get things, right? So if you had like rubber bands, those were pretty cool. That was some serious technology back in the day. Surprisingly to say that rubber bands would be that special, but they were. And you didn't want to waste things. Now we just throw away everything, right? Which is a shame. So I have like bags and bags of like little pieces of wire that I keep, because you never know when you're going to want to have like a little scrap of wire, right? A little cutoff. Use your cutoffs from that they supply you with, right? Like if you cut some leads off these transformer wires, that's good wire. Save it for another use. All right. So I'm once again repeating the same procedure sort of over on this other capacitor. Right? Spanning the gap like so. Oop, can't forget to put in the lead. This one's being a little there we go. A little stubborn. Sometimes that'll happen. Tin it. Now we can bring it over. It should go through, but I can't see. It's dark. There we go. Good lighting is important. Here we go. Then we could fold this one into place, bend it into place. And this will be our ground connection, right? So this one, we could just kind of push through and then bend it right over to our solder lug, right? So that makes it really neat. And fold it in behind there. Oop, bent it a little too much. Cooperate with me. There we go. It's not cooperating. This is getting embarrassing. I'm a blind fool right now. Okay. It's still not cooperating. Get through there. There we go. Now we got you. Now you ain't going anywhere. Okay, that's a good ground right there. You always want to make your grounds nice. Can't have crappy grounds. It's not a good thing. And don't forget the solder here. Okay, so that's sort of like the principle for getting like a neat looking lead, right? Neat looking lead dress, we call it. Like, what's the lead dress look like in an amp? And it not only, in a lot of cases, you know, lead dress is important in terms of the RF signature of the amp, that certain parts, certain wires or, you know, transmitters and other wires act more like receivers. So, you know, the way that they're related to one another, running next to each other or sort of, you know, perpendicular to one another, will reflect whether they communicate or don't communicate. Some wires you want to communicate, some wires you don't want to communicate, some wires can't communicate. So it's your job to figure out which ones communicate, which ones don't communicate. The ones that you want to communicate, that can communicate, do you want them to communicate? These are all your challenges. So in this case, you know, lead dress is also neatness, right? So you want things to look neat and be serviceable and functional neatness, right? So when you tend to bundle wires together and use, you know, I like to use, you know, instead of the Marshall way where they use like cord and wrapped it and tied it and wrapped it and tied it, which is a giant pain in the butt, but I've done it. I'll use, you know, just like the wire ties, right? The zip ties. And I buy bags of like thousands of them and use them all the time. They're just great for this kind of stuff. So, yeah, the lead dress, making it look neat is important, but the neatness also has the benefit of creating strength. As those wires are tied together, they're less likely to break off from their joints. So that's a good tip right there. So I'm going to continue on, right? Because now we can do the mains filtering, right? And this would be for the, can I even see what's going on there? Okay. Yes. So that is the ground right there, right? And we're going to, I believe the power transfer that we're using is using a voltage doubler, right? Which means that probably going too far with all this stuff, but suffice it to say that some Marshall power transformers have a AC secondary that's half the voltage that you would need, right, that you'd want to see. So it'd be like 250 as opposed to 500 after rectification. So you would want to, you know, double that. The way you double that is by taking what it is grounded to, in a sense, where Earth is virtual, right, and lift that above what the chassis ground is. Because ground, this is getting into kind of esoteric stuff or whatever, but ground can really be anything you want it to be. It's just a lower potential, in my opinion, right? So you can make ground 10 volts, 100 volts, 20, you know, 200 volts, 0 volts, negative, you know, and then the next thing above it will step up off of that point, right? So if you ground something at 200 volts, you're in a sense like adding, right, to that particular potential as reflected back to, this is going to go on forever, as it's reflected back to actual ground, which is 0 volts. So you'd have 0, which is the chassis, like 200 here, and then you can ground something there, so it'll go 200 above 0. Does that make any sense to you? If it does, you should probably do this. Anyway, let's continue. So what are we doing? We're going to do these capacitors here because they're under stuff and we don't want to kind of mess them up. So we need some red wire for this particular job. There we go. I got some red wire here. And this is going to be for the, let me tuck that out of the way again. This is going to be for the high volts coming off of the rectifier, right? So when we got the board in there, this is your rectifier. This particular is going to come off of here, right? So it's going to come off and it's going to go down to that place there. And it's going to kind of run along with this guy over here. So it's going to build, we're going to start to build our wire mess or our wire neat, right? So let's start. And these are again run basically the same as this without the addition of these 47K resistors. So we're just going to use straight up cable to do it all, right? So we'll start off with stripping out enough lead to kind of bridge the gap here, right? So I think we'll go this way, right? From this side, come in, right? Make sure that we've got enough to span, to bridge the gap. Pick it up off of there. Looks like we do, right? Bring it in close. Now we can solder. Okay. And once again, fold it over to go through the next terminal. on the capacitor that we have here. Crimp it down so it's nice and secure. Right, because as they say, solder's not glue. So you want to have a good mechanical connection too. Although, you know, sometimes it's not possible, in which case it's good enough. All right, so we got this is going to be sort of like here. So we're going to want to bring this like that, right? And then it's going to basically dart over. In my world, it darts over like that. So probably cut it around here. That'll leave us a little extra to get to the rectifier on the board. Now we can take a piece of lead here. I don't know if do I have any scraps of red lying around? I think I do. Is that a scrap of red? Yes, it is. So we can save a couple inches of wire by using this scrap here, right? Right, and we're going to go from the ground here, right, and we'll crimp it over. Right, and we're going to go to the positive on this terminal here, which will then span across as well. So we're going to strip from, this was actually almost a perfect length of cable. We're going to strip it from right about there. I just made a little dent in the wire so I can see, there we go, where I want to remove the jacket. There we go. Going to tin it down. Go through the positive side of one, like so. Lift that up off there. Go ahead and solder it in. Right? And this is the point where we're going to want to ground our center tap for our voltage doubler. Right here. So I'm going to basically crimp this over. Right? Cut off the excess, and I'm just going to leave that unsoldered for now, because basically we're going to bring the center tap from the power transformer, which I believe is this guy right here, right, and we're going to bring it over and solder it over to here, but we're probably going to go like this way and this way and then this way and then that way, so it looks really neat. Okay, so we have this ready to go. Now we need to do our little ground here. So let's see what we got for making the ground. What kind of wire do we have lying around that we can use? We need some black wire. Well, we'll just have to use some off our part that we were allocated for the build. All right, there we go. There we go. That's nice. All right, so that's grounded. All right, so we have these filter sections all nice and neatly done. Let's see what we want to do next. We probably want to bring over from here another lead to come up to the fuse up here. Right? Ow! It just snapped my tendon right across my elbow. Oh, that might be it for today. These are all the great things that happen when you're when you get injuries, right? You move your elbow like this and the tendon snaps over your elbow and hits you right on the funny bone nerve. Oof, that's something else. All right, so we can continue. We can continue. So I almost did it again. Just getting this in a good spot. Yeah, I think that works. All right, so I'm gonna get a little bit of red again. And I'm gonna come from over here. Here we go. Right. And then we're going to come around to the reverse side. Right. So these guys should all be kind of the same, more or less. Right. Come into here. Come into here. And then we're going to want to just kind of get it to about there. Okay. I guess if anybody wants to know why I'm not building a ton of amps anymore, I think you've seen it. Believe it or not, you can really cripple yourself doing this work for too long. So I have to pick and choose now when I want to build and make it worth it, right? Do something I want to do, make it fun. And this kind of stuff is fun. And I like building the pedals, right? Because those are a little easier to work with. It's not big, heavy things anymore. So like the Moto Teddies, the Jose Moto Teddies and things like that, I have a lot of fun still building those. You know, they do wear on you physically, but not like these do. You know, where you're constantly torquing on something. All right. So I think that we're giving you some good ideas of kind of how to make, you know, your lead dress all look nice and tidy. We're also going to bring through that area the ground connection, right, for the rectifier as well. So we're going to ground that particular guy right here, right at the filter cap. So that's a good spot. So let me find my wire, right? And then we could start to, I'll do that, I'll go that far because that'll show you some sort of like, give you some, what would you call it? Some satisfaction of something that's sort of completed. Because I'll do some wire zip tying. And you'll sort of see where I'm getting at. So I put my ground lead there, right? And that's going to go over to about the same length as the high volt is as well. So we got the high volt here. You know, let's go on this side of it. That'll look neat, and this one can be on that side of it. All right, so let's start zip tying. All right, so I got some zip ties here, and we're gonna sort of get them in a nice place, right? Maybe move this a little bit more that way. There we go. I think that looks really good there. Snip off the end. Give us another zip tie. One more, I think, on this side. Right about there is good. And we're going to bring this. This is going to be bent there, but these are going to kind of be like this, right? Let's get a few more zip ties. So we'll get this right here, zip tied like there. Then we'll get all three zip tied here. That looks good there. And these two guys can run like that, right? And like I said, they should be about the same length. So I'll cut it right there. So that looks, you know, that's sort of like, you know, what we're gonna wanna do. And then we'll run these, which are the primary side. We'll bundle these up to the switches, you know, and back to the fuse, to the IEC connector. We'll bundle these guys up. Right, and these guys will run probably something like that, right? Because they'll make it out to the rectifier as well. So that's sort of what we're going to be doing, right? So let me do a little bit more of this, just while we're kind of here, because this is the these are the high volts on the secondary, so we know pretty much where they're going, right? So we want to have. The yellow is going to be connected at the can, right? And the gray and the blue are going to come over and follow along. With the black and the white as they make their way to the rectifier. So let's see if there's anything else to talk about. Well, I make mistakes. I can't think of anything. How boring it is to watch amp building. Or maybe it's exciting, I don't know. We'll have to see, right? As we run all the wires around. It's kind of like amplifier bondage. Everything looks cooler when it's got like clips and ties and shit all over it. Okay. Right? So I'm excited about it, hearing what this thing's going to sound like. I think we'll bring it up into the submarine studio and give it a whirl through the setup up there. See what it kind of does. So here we have our center tap, right? So our center tap is going to come, like I said, down here to the to that filter cap. So I'm going to cut this right here, right? And that gives us some extra yellow wire that we can save for a rainy day, or for maybe we need another inch and a half of yellow wire. That could happen. So I'm going to strip that. Be funny if I built this thing as a voltage doubler and it didn't need it. Nah, it wouldn't be funny at all. I'd have to start cutting all these zip ties out. Not really. I would just move this wire to there, and it would all be okay. So I'm gonna go under because I think that looks neater, right? Like that. And then we're gonna bundle this pile up. Get this out of the way. I want everything to look right, so get it like that. Right? There we go. That's good. Let's see if we can turn that over. I think that's good there. Now we can continue the journey down there. Now I should, you know what would be interesting is if I showed you guys how Marshall used to do it. Right? I don't think I have any cord. It's you can even use like a wire too. That works a lot too. So when I used to make the blockheads, I used to do the little knit thing that Marshall used to do, right? So they used to take the thing and they would kind of wrap it around, right? And there would be a tie, right? Kind of like that. And then it would kind of go like this, right? Let me see if I can remember it. And you'd pull that through there, right? And then you'd pull everything through. And then go again, and you would kind of just like knit the whole thing together. And it's, you know, when you get in the habit of doing it, you can move pretty fast. So I could see how they used to do that back in the day in the factory. But it's, you know, finding the wire, and it's kind of wasteful. I don't know. And it looks kind of cool, but this looks cool too, I think. Wow, that elbow is on fire right now. It got, that tendon really popped over the elbow bone. We'll do one more, and I think that's about as far as we need to go with this. Right? Now you'll see too, right? That we can move these out of the way. These will get wired the same way. I mean, that we could probably do right after this, right? Bring those over that way. But I think well, half an hour. Oh boy, that's too far. All right, so I think that's good for right now, and then we'll continue on in the next video, continuing with the wiring. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back real soon with the rest of it.